Hi, and welcome back to AI for Everyone. Before we dive into the lesson, I have a quick update on the future of this channel. As we move forward, the 2026 AI Fluency lessons are evolving, and in order to practice the efficiency I preach, I'll be producing all future Fluency episodes using Notebook LM, leveraging its AI avatars to help deliver our technical deep dives over on my YouTube channel at Henson Education Services. This change allows me to dedicate this podcast channel entirely to my new 5 Points mentoring program launching next month. It's a mission designed to help young people struggling to find their footing or fulfill their potential in this chaotic world. The tools are changing, but the mission remains: educating people on fulfilling their potential.
I'm so glad you are here with us today because we are tackling the conversation. You know the one.
Oh, I know the one.
It's the conversation happening at every dinner party, every boardroom meeting, every Slack channel. It usually starts with someone showing off a new AI trick, and it ends with everyone kind of nervously laughing and asking, so, are we all going to be unemployed in 5 years?
It is the existential question of the decade, absolutely. And honestly, the anxiety makes a lot of sense. We are watching machines do things that, we always thought were uniquely human, writing poetry, debugging code, diagnosing diseases. It just feels different this time.
It feels very different. And that is exactly why we're doing this deep dive. We're not here to do the usual doom scrolling. We aren't going to just speculate about Skynet. We are going to look under the hood at the mechanics of how this stuff actually works. We have a massive stack of research today. Papers from the National Bureau of Economic Research, deep analysis from McKinsey, reports from the IMF, and some really fascinating historical economic data that goes all the way back to the steam engine.
And that historical context is, I think, non-negotiable. You really cannot understand what's happening with ChatGPT if you don't understand what happened with the power loom. We are going to try to answer a really specific question today. Is this moment the Industrial Revolution all over again? Is it just the computer age part 2, or is it something completely new?
The Great Reshuffle, that's the title we have on the outline.
I think that's the best way to describe it. It's not necessarily an apocalypse, but it is a massive structural rearrangement of who does what, and maybe more importantly, who gets paid for what.
And before we get into all the history, I want to tease the big aha moment that we found digging through this research. Because usually when we talk about technology, the assumption is that it increases inequality, right? The rich afford the robots, the highly educated use the new tools, and the regular folks get left behind.
Right. That has been the story for the last 40 years, pretty much.
Yeah.
The digital divide. That's the term we've all gotten used to.
Exactly. But there's this new paper we're going to discuss by Althoff and Reichart that suggests AI might actually do the opposite. It might reduce wage inequality.
It's a concept they call the simplification channel. And it is, I would argue, the most important economic idea to get your head around right now. It completely flips the narrative that, you need a PhD to survive the AI age. Completely on its head.
I am dying to get into that because it sounds, well, frankly, it sounds too good to be true. But we have to earn it. We have to start with the history. Because to really understand where we're going, we have to look at the last 2 times humanity collectively freaked out about machines taking over.
That's right. We need to look at the 19th century versus the 20th century.
Right.
Because, and this is the key thing to remember, technology did not treat workers the same way in those 2 eras. Not at all.
Okay, so let's hop in the time machine. First stop, Nottingham, England. The year is about 1811, and we meet the Luddites.
The Luddites.
We use that word as an insult now, right? If my dad can't figure out how to use the smart TV, I'm like, oh, you're such a Luddite. It basically means you're anti-technology.
Which is a huge historical misconception.
Yeah.
A really big one. The Luddites weren't afraid of technology. They weren't confused by it. They were, in fact, highly skilled machine operators. They were the artisans, the weavers, the knitters. These were the experts of their day.
So if they weren't anti-tech, why were they running around smashing the machines with hammers?
Because they were understanding a very, very specific economic reality. It's a phenomenon that economists now call skill-replacing technology. Let's paint a picture to make this real. Imagine a guy named Thomas. He's a master weaver in, say, 1810.
Okay, Thomas the Weaver, I'm with you.
Right, so Thomas has spent maybe 20 years learning his craft. He knows the tension of the threads, the geometry, the patterns. It's deep, what we call tacit knowledge. It's in his hands. And because of that rare skill, he earns a premium. He's comfortably middle class, he has dignity, he controls his time.
He's the expert. He's like the senior software architect of 1810.
That's a perfect analogy.
Exactly.
Then the factory system and the power loom arrive. Now, the power loom is an incredible piece of engineering, a miracle, really. But what does it do to Thomas and his skill?
It makes it obsolete.
It does more than that. It takes the complexity of weaving, the very thing Thomas was being paid for, and it embeds it into the gears and levers of the machine itself.
So the machine is the expert now. The skill is in the machine, not the person.
Precisely. And because the machine now knows how to weave, the factory owner doesn't need Thomas anymore. Who does he need? He needs a kid. He can hire an unskilled laborer, often a child, to just stand there all day and feed the machine, to tie off a broken thread. The hard part is done by the machine.
So Thomas, our master craftsman, is now in direct competition with a 12-year-old.
And he loses that competition. This is de-skilling. The technology leveled the playing field, but it leveled it down. It took all the leverage, all the economic power away from the expert craftsman and handed it to the owner of the capital, the factory owner.
So Thomas saw his wages just completely crash.
His wages cratered, his social status evaporated, and his entire way of life was destroyed.
Yeah.
So when the Luddites were smashing those looms, it wasn't out of fear or ignorance. It was a labor negotiation by other means. They were screaming, "This new machine is destroying the value of my human skill."
That is such a crucial distinction. So the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution, the paradigm was that technology attacked the expert. It replaced the skilled with the unskilled.
Yes, and it's important to note, while it eventually made clothes much cheaper for everyone, which is a net good for society, it caused decades of immense pain, dislocation, and misery for the skilled workers who were displaced.
Okay, so that's the 19th century. Now let's fast forward. The story my grandfather and my parents grew up with was totally different. It wasn't machines will make you poor. It was the opposite. It was machines will make you rich if you go to school.
Right, and that's the 20th century paradigm in a nutshell. Specifically what we saw during the computer age, which really kicked off in the 1980s. Economists have a different name for this. Skill-biased technology.
Skill bias. So it actively favors the skilled.
Exactly. Think about it this way. Let's trace Thomas's great-great-grandson. Let's call him, I don't know, a corporate accountant in 1990.
Okay, Thomas the accountant.
If you give a construction worker a personal computer in 1990, doesn't really help him pour concrete any faster. It's not a huge multiplier on his core tasks.
Right.
But if you give Thomas the accountant a computer with a program like Excel or Lotus 123,
He becomes a god, an
Right.
accounting god.
he becomes super accountant. He can do the work of 10 people who are still using ledgers and calculators. The technology complements his education. It rewards his ability to think abstractly. It's a force multiplier for his cognitive skills.
And this is where that education race comes from, right? I know a couple of our sources, 14 and 15, really dig into this.
They do, yeah. The message from the economy for 50 years was crystal clear. Get a degree. If you had the skills to use the new complex machines, the computers, your wages skyrocketed. If you didn't have that degree, if you were doing manual labor or routine service work, the technology didn't really help you much. In fact, it might have hurt you by automating some of the lower-level clerical jobs, so you fell behind.
And this created the huge inequality gap we see today. The chasm between the college-educated and the non-college educated just exploded because the tech itself was skill biased.
Precisely. So let's just recap that because it's so important. 19th century, technology replaces skills, which is bad for experts. 20th century, technology rewards skills, which is great for experts.
Which brings us to right now, the AI age. And the trillion-dollar question is, which Thomas are we? Are we the weaver, about to be replaced by a kid with a machine? Or are we the accountant, about to get superpowers?
That is exactly what all these NBER and McKinsey reports are wrestling with. And the scary part, or I guess the exciting part, depending on how you look at it, is that AI seems to be breaking that 20th century pattern. It's not following the same rules.
It's not behaving like the personal computer did.
No. In many, many ways, it looks a lot more like the 19th century power loom. It looks like it's skill replacing. But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive twist.
Okay, what's the twist?
The power loom replaced manual dexterity. AI is coming to replace cognitive dexterity. It's targeting the very white-collar task we've spent the last 50 years telling people to get degrees for. The writing, the coding, the analyzing, the legal research.
So the weavers of 2026 aren't the factory workers. They are the junior associates at law firms. They're the copywriters. They're the entry-level software developers.
Exactly. And that just changes the fundamental physics of the economy completely. It's a whole new ballgame.
Okay, I want to pause here for a second. We've set the historical stage perfectly. We know the stakes, but I really want to understand the actual mechanics of this change. You mentioned earlier in the intro that there's a race happening in the economy.
Yes. This is the core framework from these two economists, Acemoglu and Restrepo. Their paper on this is, it's the gold standard for understanding automation right now. They argue that the labor market is a constant tug of war, a race between two big forces, displacement and reinstatement.
Okay, let's break these down. Displacement is the one everyone's scared of.
Displacement is the simple, scary part. It's when a machine, a piece of technology, takes over a task that a human being used to perform.
Like, I used to calculate the spreadsheet by hand, now the software does it. Or I used to paint the car on the assembly line, now the robot arm does it.
Right. And if that was the only thing that happened, if the story ended there, we would have mass unemployment. It would be inevitable. The machine does the work. The human is fired. The end.
But obviously, that's not what's happened. We have historically low unemployment in many places. So what saves us from this fate? What's the counterforce?
Well, there are two counterforces. The first one is called the productivity effect. It's a little indirect, but it's powerful. When the machine paints the car, it does it faster and cheaper. So the cost of producing that car goes down. In a competitive market, that means the price of the car for the consumer should also go down.
Okay, I have to stop you there. I always hear this argument, and I feel like a skeptical listener out there is thinking, hang on, do prices really go down, or does the company just pocket the extra profit and give the CEO a bigger bonus?
That is a completely fair skepticism. And in the short term, especially in markets that aren't very competitive, companies absolutely try to capture that surplus. But historically, over the long term, competition does force prices down. Think about TVs, clothes, electronics. Relative to our wages, they are vastly, vastly cheaper now than they were in 1950. The productivity gains do eventually get passed on.
Okay, so let's assume the car gets cheaper. I buy my new car, and now I have, say, $1,000 left over that I wouldn't have had before.
Exactly. So what do you do with that extra $1,000? You don't just stuff it in your mattress. You spend it on going out to dinner more often. You take a weekend trip. You buy a new video game for your kid.
And that spending creates new jobs. It creates a job for a chef, a hotel clerk, a game developer.
Precisely. The demand for labor spills over into other sectors of the economy. That's the productivity effect. But Acemoglu and Restrepo argue that's still not enough to save us. You need the third and most important force, reinstatement.
Reinstatement. I've always found this term a little confusing. It sounds like I get my old job back.
Yeah, the name is a bit misleading. You definitely do not get your old job back. The weaver never becomes a weaver again. Reinstatement means the new technology creates entirely new tasks for humans. Tasks that literally did not exist before.
Okay, give me a concrete example of that.
Think about the rise of the internet in the 1990s. It absolutely displaced travel agents. That job was automated away from many people. But it also created the job of search engine optimization specialists.
Right. You couldn't be an SEO specialist in 1985. The task, the concept, the entire industry didn't exist.
Or cybersecurity analyst, or mobile app developer, or social media manager. These are all entirely new categories of human work that were reinstated into the economy by the new technology. So the race is this. Automation is constantly destroying old tasks through displacement. At the same time, innovation is creating new tasks through reinstatement. As long as reinstatement is winning the race, or at least keeping pace with displacement, we have jobs.
But the fear now with AI is that the displacement is happening so fast and across so many sectors at once that we can't possibly invent new tasks fast enough to keep up.
That is the core of the anxiety. And there's a specific type of automation that makes this problem much, much worse. Acemoglu has this great term for it. He calls it so-so automation.
So-so automation. It sounds like a bad restaurant review. The service was so-so.
It's worse than that. It's a dangerous economic trap. So automation is technology that's good enough to replace a worker, but not good enough to generate a massive productivity boost.
The listener feedback specifically asked for an example of this in the AI world. The classic one is the self-checkout kiosk at the grocery store. It replaces the cashier, but it's clunky and everyone hates it. What's the AI version of that?
The AI version is the bad customer service chatbot. We've all been there. You go to a website, you have a real problem with your bill, and this little bot pops up. It has replaced the human agent, so that job is gone. That's displacement. But does the bot actually solve your problem instantly?
Never. Not once. It just sends me in circles with pre-written answers until I end up typing or screaming representative into the box.
Exactly. So think about what happened there. The company saved a little bit of money on wages, but did they get a huge productivity gain? No. Did the service get 10 times better? No. In fact, it got worse. You, the customer, are now more frustrated.
So we get the worst of both worlds. We lose the job, but we don't get the big productivity effect that's supposed to create wealth and new jobs elsewhere in the economy.
You've got it. It's a dead end. We just get a crappier experience and fewer jobs. That is the real danger of companies rushing to roll out AI before it's actually brilliant. We want brilliant automation, technology that cures cancer or solves nuclear fusion, not so-so automation that just harasses us about our cable bill.
That makes so much sense. Now, there is one more mechanic I want to touch on before we get to the really wild simplification section. It's the multiplier effect. One of our sources from BBVA mentioned this.
Yes, the multiplier effect is all about geography. It explains why some places boom while others bust. The research found that in Europe, for every one new high-tech job created in a city, it creates about 5 other lower-tech jobs in the same local area.
So if a hot new AI startup in San Francisco hires an AI engineer for a huge salary,
that engineer then hires a dog walker, goes to the local dry cleaner, buys expensive coffee every morning, goes to restaurants, hires a contractor to renovate their kitchen.
they circulate their high salary throughout the local service economy.
Exactly. They support 5 other jobs. But, and this is a huge but, this explains why places like the Rust Belt suffered so much. When the high-paying manufacturing jobs left, the multiplier left with them. The coffee shops and diners closed down. So if AI concentrates all the high-paying jobs in just 3 or 4 superstar cities, say San Francisco, New York, London, and maybe Austin, then those cities get the amazing multiplier effect. The rest of the country, the rest of the world, gets nothing.
So even if AI is a net creator of jobs for the whole economy, that doesn't matter if you're not in the right zip code. If I'm in a town where the factory closed 20 years ago and now the call center is closing because of AI, I don't really care that San Francisco has more dog walkers.
Precisely. That creates the inequality of geography, and it's a huge source of political and social tension.
Okay, so we have the history, the Luddites versus the accountants. We have the mechanics, the race between displacement and reinstatement. Now let's get to the heart of it. What makes AI so different and weird? We teased the simplification channel at the top of the show.
This is the part that, I have to admit, keeps me up at night, both in a good way and a bad way. It's so counterintuitive.
One of the sources calls AI routine bias technological change on steroids. Let's break that down.
Okay, so RBTC is the economist jargon. For the last 30 years, computers have been great at automating routine tasks. Think filing, doing arithmetic, sorting data, predictable rule-based stuff.
But now AI is coming for the non-routine tasks.
Right, it's moving up the food chain. Writing a marketing strategy, diagnosing a patient's symptoms, writing functional Python code. These are things that require judgment, creativity, and synthesis, things we thought were safe.
So let's finally unpack this simplification channel from the Althoff and Reichart paper. You said it might reduce inequality. How on earth does that work?
Okay, let's use a very specific real-world example. Let's talk about software developers.
The classic 21st century, good job, high-skilled, high-paid.
Exactly. So imagine 2 people in a company. First, you have a senior architect. Let's call her Sarah. She has 20 years of experience. She knows the deep, complex architecture of the company's systems. She makes, let's say, $250,000 a year.
She is the expert, the top of the pyramid.
Then you have a junior developer. Let's call him David. He's smart. He just graduated. He knows the basics, but he's slow. He makes a lot of syntax mistakes. He needs a lot of supervision from Sarah. He makes, say, $70,000. Big gap.
Okay, got it. Sarah the expert, David the novice.
Now, you introduce a powerful AI coding assistant like GitHub Copilot to both of them. What happens? For Sarah, the senior architect, the AI is helpful. It's nice. It might make her 20% faster at typing out boilerplate code. But the real bottleneck for her isn't the typing. It's the high-level system design, the really complex problem solving. The AI helps set the margins, but she was already great.
It's a nice to have, not a need to have.
For David, the junior developer, though, the AI is a complete game changer. It's like a superpower. It fills in all of his knowledge gaps. It catches his syntax errors before he even makes them. It writes the tedious boilerplate code that he used to struggle with for hours. All of a sudden, he isn't just a junior anymore. He is outputting code at the level of a mid-level or even a senior developer.
The tool bridged the skill gap between him and Sarah.
It simplified the complexity of the task. It dramatically lowered the barrier to entry for producing high-quality work.
Okay, I can see the mechanism there. That makes sense. But I want to push back on the result. You're saying this reduces inequality because David, the junior guy, now gets a big raise?
That's the optimistic side of the coin, yes. The total supply of high-quality code in the economy goes way up because now way more people can produce it, so David becomes much more valuable and his wages could go up.
But doesn't basic supply and demand economics say that if the supply of something goes way up, its price goes down? If everyone can suddenly write senior-level code with the help of an AI, why would I, as the company owner, pay Sarah, the senior architect, $250,000 a year?
And that is the dark side of the simplification channel. You have absolutely nailed it. It reduces inequality, yes, but potentially by dragging the top down rather than just lifting the bottom up, it creates a compression of wages in the middle.
So the expert, she loses her premium. It's just like Thomas the Weaver in 1810. His rare skill was no longer rare.
It's the exact same economic dynamic. We might be witnessing the beginning of the end for the expert premium in a lot of cognitive fields. If all the world's knowledge is available in an instant and the execution of a task is heavily assisted by AI, what exactly are we paying the human expert for? Their value proposition has to change.
That is a terrifying thought for anyone who just spent $250,000 on a law degree or a master's degree.
It is. It really is. But let's flip it for a second. It's an amazing opportunity for the person who didn't get that degree. The person who is smart and driven and has good logical skills but couldn't afford a 4-year university. Suddenly, with these tools, they can compete for jobs that were previously completely out of reach. It democratizes capability in a radical way.
It's the revenge of the generalist over the specialist.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. That study we mentioned predicts that AI could raise average wages by as much as 21%, but mainly by allowing lower and middle-skilled workers to compete for high-skill tasks.
Now, this has to connect to the exposure paradox that's mentioned in that Stanford report.
The exposure paradox is such a crucial concept to understand. Because we hear these scary headlines, right? 40% of jobs are exposed to AI, and we immediately panic. We think exposed means we'll be replaced.
Like being exposed to a virus, you're going to get sick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in economics, exposed just means the AI can perform some of the tasks associated with this job. It doesn't mean it can do the whole job.
Let's use the radiologist example. This is the classic one everyone talks about.
Perfect example.
Okay.
A huge part of a radiologist's job is looking at scans, X-rays, MRIs, to find anomalies, to find cancer. AI is getting very, very good at looking at pixels and finding patterns, sometimes better than humans. So that task is highly exposed.
So does the radiologist get fired and replaced by a server in a closet?
Well, let's look at the entire bundle of tasks that make up the radiologist's job. Is their entire job just looking at pixels all day?
No, of course not. They have to consult with the oncologist. They have to explain the results to the patient in an empathetic way. They have to decide on the complex treatment plan. They have to deal with weird, novel cases the AI has never seen before.
Exactly. Those are the abstract, human-centric tasks. So if the AI takes over the tedious, tiring, eye-straining part of the job, the pixel looking, does the radiologist lose their job? Or do they just stop doing the boring part and get to spend more of their time on the high-value strategy and the patient care?
So they become more doctor, less image processor.
That's the hope. The Stanford report actually shows that 75% of all new tasks added to the economy in recent decades have been abstract in nature. We are constantly moving away from the routine stuff. So the optimistic take is that AI will just strip mine the boring parts of our white-collar jobs and leave us with the more interesting, creative, and human parts.
That's the hopeful version. But the cynical version is that the hospital administrator looks at this and says, great, the AI does all the initial scans. I'm going to fire half my radiologists and make the remaining ones work twice as fast, managing the AI's output.
And that brings us perfectly to the next section, the future of work. Because which of those two futures we get, the liberated doctor or the unemployed doctor, is not a technological question. It's a choice about how we design our organizations and our jobs.
That McKinsey report uses this term I really like. They move past automation and talk about superagency.
Superagency is such a cool and useful concept. It shifts the entire mindset away from I do the work to I manage a system that does the work.
It's the shift from being the first violin in the orchestra to being the conductor of the orchestra.
That's it, exactly. And the team you're conducting is no longer just other humans. Your team is now you, the human leader, plus a collection of AI agents These are software programs that can go off and do things autonomously, plus robots, which are the physical machines. Your job is to orchestrate all these pieces.
So in this new world, what skills actually matter? That McKinsey report has a skill change index. What skills are tanking in value?
If your entire career is banked on knowing a specific set of facts or following a specific set of rules, you are in a very precarious position. Specialized technical skills that are purely syntax-based, like knowing exactly where the semicolon goes in C++, are declining in value pretty rapidly.
Because the AI never forgets the semicolon. And if it does, it can fix it instantly.
Right. Routine information processing is dead. Taking a big document and writing a basic summary of it is a task that's now worth close to $0.
So what's on the rise? What are the enduring skills?
It's the stuff that's harder to measure, but more human. The report lists things like reliability, empathy, and most critically, framing the problem.
Framing the problem. Let's double click on that. What does that actually mean?
Look, an AI, especially a large language model, is an answer engine. It's the greatest answer engine ever created. The marginal cost of getting a plausible sounding answer to a question is dropping to zero.
Answers are cheap now. They're a commodity.
But questions, good questions, are becoming incredibly expensive and valuable. Knowing which problem to solve in the first place, knowing why we're even trying to solve it, understanding the deep context of the business or the human need you're serving. That is something the AI cannot do because it doesn't live in the world. It doesn't have goals or intentions. It just lives in the data.
There's a great quote in one of the other sources. AI generates answers. It falls to the human to ask the right questions.
That's the whole game right there.
Yeah.
The value is shifting from the how of the work to the what and the why.
So if I want to have this super agency, I'm going to need a new kind of hard skill. The outline we have calls it AI fluency.
Yes, and I want to be really, really clear about what this means. AI fluency is not just, I know how to write a prompt for ChatGPT.
Write me a poem about my cat in the style of Shakespeare.
Yeah, right. That's level one. That's the bare minimum. True AI fluency is understanding the architecture of these systems. It's knowing, what are the inherent limitations of this model? When is it likely to hallucinate or make something up? When should I use a generative AI versus a traditional database or a statistical model? How do I chain 3 different AI agents together to automate a complex, multi-step workflow?
It's orchestration. It's being the director of the movie, not just one of the actors.
It's being the director.
Yeah.
And according to the data, the demand for this specific skill set has grown 7-fold in just the last 2 years. It is the new literacy. If you can't do this, it will be like not knowing how to use a web browser 20 years ago.
Right. So we've covered a ton of theory. Now I want to get extremely practical. I want to give the learner, the person listening to this right now, a checklist. Section 5. What do we actually do to prepare?
All right, let's break it down into 3 levels. What you can do as an individual, what you need to do as a leader in an organization, and what we need to think about from a policy perspective.
Perfect. Start with the individual. I'm listening to this, I'm, say, 28 years old. I work in marketing or maybe data analysis. What do I do tomorrow morning when I get to work?
The very first thing is a mindset shift. Stop trying to compete with the robot on volume or speed. You will lose that fight every single time. You need to shift your identity from being a generator of first drafts to being an editor and a prompter.
Explain that editor mindset.
Okay, let's use your marketing example. You have to write a new campaign proposal, the old way. You stare at a blank white page for 2 hours, you get writer's block, you eventually grind out a mediocre first draft, then you spend another 2 hours editing it.
Sounds familiar.
The new way. You spend 15, maybe 20 minutes really thinking. You define the structure of the proposal, you outline the key arguments you want to make, you define the target audience and the tone of voice. You feed that detailed outline to an AI. It instantly generates 3 different versions of the full proposal. You then spend your time reading them, combining the best parts, adding the specific client context that the AI missed, and polishing the final voice.
So my value isn't in the act of writing the words anymore. It's in the strategic thinking up front and the critical judgment at the end. I'm the editor-in-chief of my own work.
Yes. You have elevated your role. You moved up the food chain from laborer to manager, and you probably produced a better piece of work in half the time. That is what super agency looks like in practice.
What about this human amplifier concept that came up in the research?
That's about consciously leaning into the skills that the AI is terrible at. Things like negotiation, managing difficult client relationships, making tough ethical judgments. One of the sources lists these new potential job titles like AI ethicist or AI-augmented creative strategist.
Yeah.
Your job is to be the human bridge, the translator between the messy, emotional human world and the clean, logical digital output of the machines.
Okay, that's for individuals. Now let's talk about the leaders, the bosses, the managers. One of our sources had that incredibly blunt title, Your Law Firm Will Die. Subtlety is dead, apparently. The full title was, Your Law Firm Will Die If Leadership Doesn't Go All In on AI. But the article wasn't just about buying new software. It was about avoiding the cow path.
The cow path is my absolute favorite business analogy for this moment. It's so perfect.
Lay it on us.
Okay, so imagine a field. A herd of cows walks across it every day to get to the water. Over time, they wear a winding, meandering path into the grass. Later, the farmer comes along and wants to make it easier, so he paves the cow path. Now it's paved path, but it's still winding and inefficient. Then the village grows and they widen it for cars. Now it's a road, but it's still the same inefficient, meandering route the cows took. It's just a faster, inefficient path.
Paving the cow path. I see it.
Most companies right now are using AI to pave their existing cow paths. They're saying, oh, we used to take 10 minutes to answer a customer email, and now with this AI tool, we can do it in 1 minute.
But the real question is, maybe you shouldn't be sending that email at all. Maybe the problem should have been solved earlier in the process.
Exactly. Real innovation, what the sources call workflow redesign, is looking at the whole field and saying, why are we walking around this hill? Let's burn the path down and build a bridge straight across. You have to fundamentally rethink the process.
So if you're a leader, the question isn't, how can AI make this existing task faster? The question is, does this new AI capability allow us to delete this task or this entire department and achieve the goal in a completely different way?
Yes. Don't just automate the old process. Obliterate the old process and build a new one from scratch, designed around the new capabilities. That's the hard work that most leaders are avoiding right now.
Finally, let's zoom out to the 30,000-foot view policy. Because if this job reshuffle is as big and as fast as we think it might be, individual hustling and good corporate management isn't going to be enough. We're going to need structural change.
Absolutely. We need what one source calls institutional innovation. Think about it. Our entire social safety net, our labor laws, they were all built for the 20th century factory model. The idea was you work for one company, like GM or IBM, for 30 years. They pay your pension. They provide your health care.
That model is completely dead for most people.
It's dying fast. And AI is going to accelerate the jigification of white-collar work. If I'm a super agent working on 5 different projects for 5 different clients in a given month, who pays for my health insurance? Who contributes to my retirement?
So we need portable benefits, benefits that follow the person, not the job.
We need benefits attached to the person, yes. And that opens up a huge, contentious political debate.
Right. I have to play devil's advocate here. Who pays for that? If I'm a freelancer, does my rate just have to go up to cover it? Does the government pay for it through taxes?
That is the big fight. Some people argue the platforms, the Upworks and Fiverrs of the world, should have to pay into a centralized benefits fund. Others argue for some form of universal basic income, or UBI, funded by new taxes on automation itself.
The famous robot tax.
Exactly. The idea is, if the robot takes the human's job, maybe a portion of the value created by that robot should go into a fund to support the displaced worker, maybe through retraining programs or income support.
But then the big tech companies and venture capitalists say, if you tax the robots in California, we'll just move the robots to a different country with no robot tax.
And that is the massive global coordination problem. There are no easy answers here at all. But the fundamental point is this. We cannot run a 21st century AI-driven economy on 1950s era labor laws. The system will break. It will create massive social unrest if the gains aren't shared more broadly.
We have to innovate our social institutions just as fast as we're innovating our code.
Amen to that.
Wow. This has been heavy, but hopefully really illuminating. We've gone from the angry weavers of Nottingham all the way to the super agents of the future. Let's try to bring it all home. Can you summarize the main beats for the learner one more time?
Okay, let's try. Beat number 1. We are leaving the 20th century world of skill-biased technology. The automatic premium you got for just having a college degree is shrinking.
Okay.
2, the simplification channel is the new driving force. AI is lowering the barrier to entry for complex cognitive work. This is a direct threat to high-end experts, but it's a massive opportunity for the ambitious generalists.
All right.
3, watch out for the trap of so-automation. As a leader, don't just deploy a bot because you can. Make sure it's creating real value, not just cutting a job and making the customer experience worse.
And 4.
4, you have to adopt the mindset of super agency. Your job is no longer to do all the work. Your job is to be the conductor of a human AI team. Ask better questions. Be the editor, not just the writer.
And I want to leave everyone listening with that final powerful thought from one of the sources. This isn't inevitable, it's a choice.
It is a societal choice. Technology is not like the weather. It doesn't just happen to us. We as a society make thousands of little and big decisions about how to design it, how to regulate it, and how to deploy it. We decide if we pave the cow path or build the bridge. We decide if we share the immense productivity gains or if we let them all accrue to a tiny number of people.
The engine is running faster than ever before, but we are still the ones steering the car.
Let's make sure we drive it somewhere good.
Learner, thank you for diving deep with us today. Go out there and edit your workflow. Go ask better, more interesting questions, and we will see you next time in the deep end.